Call the meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. All members are present. We have approval of the agenda. Is there any additions? Council? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Heidi. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Joe. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Approval of the minutes of the October 2nd, 2024 regular meeting. All are included in your packet. Is there any questions or corrections needed within those minutes? Hearing nothing, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 2nd meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Diane. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. This now brings us to our public open forum. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Call a third time. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Seeing no one, our public open forum is closed. We do not have any public hearings tonight. We will then move on to reports and presentations. Police Department monthly report. Joe?
Good evening, everybody. I got the September numbers that you can see in front of you. If you look, we're kind of right on par, average for years past. 825 ICRs for the month of September. Some of the higher numbers there, 12 alarm calls, which seems a little higher than normal. We started writing some parking tickets for 40-hour parking, downtown parking, 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. So between tickets and warnings, there was 18 of those. And we're going to continue doing that, kind of leading up to the winter parking coming in a couple of months. 19 medical calls, 13 welfare checks. As you see, there's a handful of tickets for speeding, use of wireless device, a few for driving while impaired, and no license violations. This will probably be the last. Next month numbers are probably going to be pretty skewed. We've already started scaling back on some of the reports that we're putting in the system now, because come November 12th, they go away and the system will no longer be maintained. So the October numbers will probably be pretty low just because we're not entering a bunch, because we were entering basically for nothing. So all the reportable stuff we'd entered, but a lot of the non-crime, non-reportables for the month of October, we're kind of focusing more on this Tyler Tech project, which is set to go live on November 12th at 7 a.m. So there's been someone at training pretty much the last 3 weeks, either one of the patrol guys or Melissa. There's meetings all the way leading up to that. So we're just really ramping that up, making sure all of our computers have the current software. So that's kind of what's going on this last couple of weeks with that stuff. Any questions or concerns about anything going on?
Questions? Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Public Works Department monthly report. Ben?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This past month, the plow trucks have received their annual DOT inspections and have updated stickers on them. All of the oil changes and other required maintenance was completed on those trucks. The plow equipment is installed and ready for use once the snow arrives. The road grader still has summer cutting edges on it. We're hoping for one more rainfall to soften the gravel roads, and that way we can blade them one more time before the freezing weather is here. Once that happens, we'll switch the blade over to its winter equipment. We will do the alleyways one more time as well once we get some rain. The dirt removal from the industrial park project that was completed, there's a section of roadway that had some cracks open up on it. That's that new roadway in the industrial park. The subsoil in this area showed some signs of stress compared to the rest of the road. It's about 100 feet long. So we're going to fill those cracks in prior to winter. and then we're gonna be looking at a longer-term repair. So I wouldn't say that it's the contractor's fault, because 1,200 feet of road is just fine, and 100 feet has some issues. So something happened with the subsoil underneath of that section, so we'll be looking into that. Parks and campground stuff, all the sprinkler systems, water lines, and bathrooms have been winterized for the year. Water meters were removed, and all the bathrooms are locked for winter now. All the parks received their annual weed spraying on the turf areas. Outdoor rink, we did some interior painting along with replacing a door and a wall that was in poor condition in the building. The Lions donated trees to be planted along the community garden, so we assisted with planting those and getting them watered. The arena, considerable time spent up there in preparation for getting the ice in. The ice installation has been taking place this week. It's been going really well. It will wrap up by the end of the week and it'll be ready for practice next Monday. The Olympia also received all of its preparation maintenance and is ready for use for the season. So we'll have guys starting to work up there on Monday and through the rest of the year. And we do have figure skating. I know Nikki advertised for it, so as long as we get enough interest in that, we will have figure skating in as well again on Saturdays. Any questions for me?
Questions? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Ambulance Department Quarterly Report. Kathy?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here for the third quarter report for 2024. July, we had 65 total runs, calls, or activities. Of those, 17 were no loads, 4 were ALS transfers, 19 were BLS transfers. 48 of those calls were billable for a total of $56,581. August, we had 118 calls, runs, or activities. 32 were no loads, 4 ALS transfers, 26 BLS transfers, and then we started doing a dialysis transfer 3 times a week for a patient in town that we take to dialysis. And then 4 hours later, go back and bring that patient back to their residence in town. So that was 30 additional transfers for that. So total actual BLS transfers were 56 total for that month. 86 of these calls were billable for a total of $111,381. September, we had 101 total runs, calls, activities, 13 of which were no loads, 4 ALS transfers, 26 BLS transfers, and then 24 dialysis transfers. So it was 50 total BLS transfers in that month. 89 of those were billable for a total of $118,416. So the majority of our calls, the no loads, continue to be for lift assist, falls, motor vehicle crashes. Majority of our medicals are brought to Sauk Center Hospital, of course. We had 2 this quarter that were taken to Long Prairie. And the majority of our transfers are going to St. Cloud, but the ongoing list that I send out shows all the different hospitals that we do take to. Quite a few to Fargo, and which are some medical related. Sometimes St. Cloud is full, so we end up taking medical patients to Fargo. Third quarter transfers, mutual aid transfers, we did 2 ALS transfers from Melrose to St. Cloud for Melrose Hospital, or Melrose Ambulance, I'm sorry. And then we did 1 BLS transfer from Albany Clinic to St. Cloud for Melrose. For Centricare Mutual Aids, we did 1 from Long Prairie to Prairie St. John's, 1 from Long Prairie to St. Cloud, 1 from Monticello to Sanford and Thief River Falls, and 1 from Wilmer to Rochester. So we're out there doing a lot of transfers, trying to help out. Centricare seems to have a lot of transfers that get built up, and when they have one that's holding for a specific amount of time, they'll call either us or Melrose to see if we're willing to take it, and then we check with our on-call crew if they want it, and then we check to make sure we have backup for our rigs, and then if we do, we'll let them take these mutual aid transfers. So, and then we did 1 mutual aid for North Ambulance out of Alexandria, went to Osakis, picked up a medical there, and they were taken to Elamere and Alexandria. So 6 of our ALS transfers were given to either Melrose or Centricare, as none of our medics were available. But then you can see that we took 2 from Melrose, so we work back and forth with Melrose. When we don't have medics and they don't have medics, we work back and forth and try and help each other out. Special details for third quarter, we did the Career One Kids Day. We worked with kids that are interested in the medical field, did CPR with them and demonstration of the equipment and rig tours. We did the West Union 4th of July Parade, St. Clair Lewis Days Parade, Night to Unite. We did 3 football standbys, standby at the autocross, and we had 5 fair contracts. We do an activity for each day of the fair because we send a crew out there. We just do standby first aid out fair, so we started an activity for that. And then we had 3 demo derbies, then we would do an activity for that. And then we had 2 contacts over and above that at the demo derbies. One had mud splattered in their eye, and another was a driver that took a hard hit. And we had 3 contacts from the fair booth. One was an assault, one was a fall from a horse, and one was from the hot dog eating contest where somebody got dizzy and weak. They didn't choke. You'd expect them to be called there for choking.
Yeah.
But it wasn't somebody. It was just in the heat, and they got dizzy and weak, so yeah. And then we did a drill with the Black Oak Wind Farm, so we typically will do one every year or 2 with Black Oak, where we respond out to one of their windmills, and they lower a injured patient down to us, and it's just a drill we go out to do. So we've had a pretty busy third quarter. This is what we've been doing, putting a lot of miles on our rigs, which is why we do that 3-year rotation, because we do a lot of miles on our rigs. So any questions for me?
Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
All right,
Kathy.
Thank you.
Planning Commission report? Sarah?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You have a copy of the Planning Commission agenda from October 8th meeting. We had 2 public hearings for 2 variances, which are action items a little later on your agenda. And then we had the, July, August, and September building reports. July, we had a total of $741,000 worth of new construction. A year ago, it was $441,000. August, $359,000 for this year, and 2023 was for $429,000 in total construction value. And September, we had $156,000, which is a little slower. And a year ago, we had $717,000 in new construction value.
Questions? Comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to action items. 7A, approve resolution 2024-82, granting variance. Wessel?
So the Planning Commission, acting as the Board of Adjustment at its October 8th meeting, conducted a public hearing to consider the request of Matthew and Tara Wessel for a variance from the maximum accessory structure size to build a detached accessory structure larger than allowed under the official controls. The new building to be utilized as a combination garage, storage, and recreation area. The property is 385 East River Circle and abuts 185 to the rear. It's a combination of 2 lots. The request is to allow a 40 by 72 accessory structure where the maximum size allowed is 1,200 square feet. In addition, the maximum cumulative structures allowed is 1,800, and this proposal, if approved, would allow 3,888 when combined with the existing accessory structure and attached garage on the property. And I do have a schematic in your packet to kind of indicate what that property looks like. Upon conclusion of the public hearing, the board recommends that the request be granted based upon the following findings. It said no evidence has been submitted indicating that the location of the new structure would adversely affect the public health, welfare, and safety or be detrimental and injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood. Number 2, the current garage is not sufficient in size for vehicles and storage, and winter parking does not allow parking on the street, creating the need for more off-street parking. A detached garage is allowed use in the low and medium density residential zoning district, and the applicant is not asking for any economic consideration. They put the following conditions on the approval: that the primary and secondary parcels be combined into one parcel, the detached structure to be constructed in a manner consistent with residential structure with no pole barn type construction allowed. The exterior finish shall be similar to the main house and existing detached garage. The new structure to be located 30 feet or more from the road right-of-way of County 185. The downspouts and gutters shall be directed to the rear yard. Nothing related to a home-based business shall be parked or stored outside, and the variance will become void in 1 year if not acted upon. And all of those conditions and findings are outlined in Resolution 2024-82, granting the variance to Matthew D. and Tara M. Wessel.
Questions? Comments? Everyone knows the
Yeah.
location of this property. As the first condition says, the two parcels have to be combined before the permit can be done, because according to city code, you can't have a shed on a separate parcel without having a house on it first. Variance was given based on, one of the things is he's got the holding pond in that lot. So makes most of that lot unbuildable. And he also, along the east side, he's got an easement for the trail going in there. So based on those, we considered both of those things a hardship. And that's where the variance came from. So, any other questions or concerns? Otherwise, I'll be looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2024-82.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Shellen,
I'll second.
second by Diane. Any other concerns or comments? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7B, approve Resolution 2024-83, granting variance Gonzalez.
So the Planning Commission, again acting as the Board of Adjustment on October 8th, conducted a public hearing to consider the request of Guillermo M. Sarmiento Gonzalez and Yemi Mota Estilo to vary from the property setback line and to exceed the maximum size allowed for attached garage. The property is located at 725 Prospect Avenue and is at the corner of Prospect and Center Street. So they have a couple of requests here. One is for a setback to the addition to the home. The existing home is 6 feet from the property line, and they would continue that addition at that same location. The second is a setback for a new attached garage. And then they had requested 2 feet. I believe the Planning Commission moved that to 5 feet at the meeting, but the standard is 25 feet. And then the maximum size of garage, the standard is 1,200 feet. Their request is for 1,584, which is 44 by 36. At the time of the application, they wanted the driveways, I believe, to go out to Center Street, but now they've turned it and it's going to access off the alley. Because in our city code, like if you access off a street or an alley, you're supposed to have your garage doors at least 20 feet back, where this would only make it 5 feet. So I think they're turning that so that comes off the alley. So that was the board recommendation, what they changed that setback request from 2 feet to 5 feet back. The findings supporting the recommendation is that no evidence has been submitted indicating the location would adversely affect the public health, safety, and welfare, that the practical difficulty was not self-created as the original dwelling was constructed in 1910, long before modern zoning codes were established. Improving the existing housing stock within the city is part of our comprehensive plan. That remodeling an older home and adding more livable space is very common in the R1 zoning district. The current detached garage and smaller shed will be removed from the property. And the owner submits that a 1,200 square foot garage is not sufficient in size for vehicles and storage. And also the winter parking doesn't allow for that on-street parking. Additions to existing dwellings and attached garages are an allowed use, and they're not asking for any economic considerations. So those are what the findings supporting the recommendation are. And the following conditions are that the existing detached garage and storage shed to be removed, the garage doors face the alley and not the street, the downspouts and gutters be directed toward the rear of the property, nothing related to a home-based business shall be parked or stored outside, and the variance is void within 1 year if not acted upon. And these are all laid out in Resolution 2024-83, granting the variances to Gonzalez.
Questions? Concerns? Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2024-83?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Heidi. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Joe. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7C, approve EMT appointment.
The following recommendation has been received from Ambulance Director Strufert. This is effective October 16th. I would like to recommend April Marthaler be promoted from probationary EMT to EMTB Level 1 for the ambulance service, along with the pay increase according to the current pay policy. While on probation with our service, April has had favorable reviews. She has exceeded the 20 patient contacts that are required while on probation, and she takes active call with our service and backup when available. So the request is to approve advancement of April Marthaler to EMT B1 effective October 16th, 2024.
Comments or concerns? Do I have a motion to approve the advancement?
I'll make a motion.
I'll
Motion
second
by
it.
Joe, seconded by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7D, approve resolution 2024-84, adjusting accounts receivable.
So each year, we review the unpaid invoices for certification to taxes, to send to collections, or to write off. The resulting bad debts to be removed are as follows. We have $3,664.45 in collections for fire. And as you know, this is the first year we can certify fire calls to taxes, but these fire calls are all car accidents and not structure fires. So if you see the listing on the resolution, they will all say cars. And then we have finance charges or duplicate removals of $418.21, certified to taxes for sidewalk repairs, $1,028.46, certified to taxes for lot mowing, $92.08, certified taxes for nuisances, $914.97. So for a total of $6,118.17, which is a resolution 2024-84, approving the adjustments to accounts receivable through collections, write-offs, and certification to taxes.
Questions, concerns? Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2024-84?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by Shallen, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Any other discussion? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. 7E, provide direction to engineer on 8th Street South proposal.
So the city council, as you know, met at 5 o'clock this evening on site on 8th Street South to review options for the future improvement of 8th Street South, in which we invited all the residents on 8th Street to be there as well, and I think they were all there. So we had several options for the improvement. They looked at all 6 of them. The engineer had all 6 options staked out so that we could garner some input from them. And they ranged from a full-width street with sidewalks on both sides, all the way down to a reduced one-way street with parking and sidewalk on one side. And that was options 1 through 6. And so we're looking tonight to give some direction to the city engineer on which design that he should proceed with. And he's certainly here to answer any of your questions.
Okay. Council have any comments?
The one question I did have, and I kind of addressed this, Keith, when we were down there, was just with option 6, if we were to shift over to match the right-of-way between Pine and Birch, beyond that, between Ash and Birch, it was basically within the roadway. So that was kind of where my question was would that have to be moved in the further section as well?
Yeah, essentially, I think when we get to final design, we would want to skew the road a little bit to try and minimize impacts to the boulevards areas. So like the area we were looking at between Pine and Birch, we would probably shift that to the south as we were talking. And as we get closer to the intersection, we might have that road at a little bit of an angle so that then it matched where between Birch and Ash that were sort of centered down the existing street to have as little disruption on
Right.
either side as possible, I think. As long as we can do that without any noticeable kinks, if you will, in the roadway, which it doesn't move that much, so I'm not really concerned about that. But that would be my thought, would be to, to put it simply, try to keep all the improvements generally within the curb to curb that's there now.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that
With-
answered my question.
With option 6 in that,
Right.
in mind.
Well, but really, I mean, with any of the,
With
because,
any of them, we try that, well, obviously, we can't go outside the right of way unless we purchase right of way, but otherwise, we try to keep it to as minimal disruption as we can, so sort of keep it on the existing road to the best we can.
Right, because many of the option, like I said, I think option 6, when you get between Birch and Ash, I mean, that was essentially in the roadway. And then
road.
the other ones were
Yeah, yeah.
a lot further over as well.
That block is slightly wider on the street, so it's, you know, it made up. And then it's, remember from Birch to, Pine to Birch was a little bit to the
Right.
north, so we were going to shift it. Essentially, the road has just moved a little bit, the existing road through there.
Right.
And it seemed like, from what I heard, that the one-way was not, there was nobody who was against it, that particular option. Certainly, we heard some comments about wider is not good because it impacts especially on the north side where there's a little steeper boulevard areas and trees and that. And so that's kind of the things that I thought I heard out there is that.
Right.
And then also sidewalks, seemed to be a sidewalk on one side was desired versus two sides is what I thought I heard generally from the folks.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I was overwhelmingly, I think, option 6, when we discussed and could visualize the moving it over a little bit further than the marked area, with the sidewalks on the north side seemed to be the preferred option. Makes the most sense.
Yeah, right, I think so. And then obviously I'd like some thoughts as the intersection of Main as to, we can discuss that or hear your thoughts as to what you might wish to try and accomplish. We can draw some things up, so that could be an ongoing issue is just the intersection. If you want me to try to look at a couple of ideas of how to straighten that out to some degree, if you'd like to do that. But that's sort of ancillary, I think, to the overall big decision.
Right.
Any other comments?
I guess I would agree with what Heidi was saying. To me, I feel like option 6 and sliding it a little bit to the south would make the most sense just with the layout that you had out there. That was really nice to be able to visualize that.
Okay,
I agree too.
If we can make the decision also to kind of look at that option of straightening the road out, maybe creating a little more space and distance between the viaduct and the corner of that intersection of 8th Street, to give people a little more time to react as you come down that hill. I think that's been the problem as you turn onto 8th going towards the school, that you don't really have time to react to people coming down that hill and turning up.
And we did hear the landowners on the north side, we just threw out the idea of potentially because we could potentially give up some right-of-way and maybe take some right-of-way, and they seemed agreeable to a discussion of if, there was a swap of property, if you will, that they were agreeable to that concept, which might help us with some options of trying to make a softer, S-curve out of that.
right.
Yeah, I think option 6 seems to be about the only viable one there. I don't think sidewalks on both sides makes sense. And I mean, the roads, the other first 4 options, the amount of yard that those people on the north side were going to be losing, it's just, I don't think that's reasonable to pursue. So I mean, I think option 6, the one way and parking on one side, sidewalk on the north side, and then exploring that intersection is worth looking at some options there yet, in my opinion, just to see what we can do there.
Yeah, and one of the things with that intersection down there too is when they do Main Street, that's gonna affect how MnDOT's design of that road could be too. When we get to that point, so we don't wanna get too carried away as far as how
What
we're
we
gonna
actually
take
do.
care of that, but just to have it all tore out again. Depends on how far over they come, so. So basically, from what I'm hearing, we kinda got a consensus that we're gonna go with option 6 and slide it over to the south.
Yeah.
As
I'll
far
draw
as,
something up so you can just kind of look at what we're planning, and I'll come back to you with, maybe a couple different options at the intersection, so that you can look at that and decide how you want to proceed on that. But we'll move forward with the rest of it.
okay. Anybody else got any other comments?
No, I just really appreciate you laying all that out, Keith. That really, really helped to visualize all the options.
But I think especially on, when we were talking in here, the one way was brought up as kind of, I don't know about that, but when you actually then see it, I think that was helpful for
Right.
the
Yeah.
residents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to,
So we're just general consent, we don't
no
need a.
consents. I think
Yeah.
we provided direction to him,
All right, thank you.
basically. Move on to unfinished business, closing on South Industrial Park sale, October.
So we had previously entered into a purchase agreement to sell Lot 1, Block 3, South Sauk Center Industrial Park. This is the one where we had the stockpile of black dirt and clay on that had all been removed, as Ben had said. The closing was set for Tuesday. Yesterday, Warren and I went to sign our papers, and they got delayed a couple days because of getting their EIN number for their new business name. So they hope to do their signatures by the end of the week, so we should have everything in hand for that. So that one is our fourth of 6 lots sold out there.
Questions? Okay. No action needed on that. New business, appeal of zoning administrator Hokanson.
Okay, so the Planning Commission at its October 8th meeting heard an appeal filed by Christopher and Christine Hokanson on a determination letter sent by the zoning administrator and alleging that they brought fill onto property in the floodplain where such fill is prohibited. The zoning administrator based her determination on the FEMA floodplain map, which determines if a property is in the floodplain. Because the city adopted the floodplain ordinance, we must enforce its regulations. The property in question is 717 Lakeshore Drive. The property owner previously obtained a permit to replace an existing retaining wall with a new wall, which has been completed, and that's not part of this situation. However, after completion of the wall, wash sand was brought in to supplement the beach. Bringing in sand is considered fill and prohibited in a floodplain. The zoning administrator's order directed the owner to remove the excess sand and establish vegetation in those areas. That order also imposed a fine. The owner had the option to have an engineer make a determination if the floodplain information available to the city was accurate. And if the engineer's study found that the property was not in the floodplain, then we would follow DNR shorelands, which would allow a sand blanket, which is 10 cubic yards, which would do about 50 feet of the beach. The city is the regulatory agency for the shoreland ordinance from the ordinary high water mark landward, which is from the edge of the ordinary high water mark landward is the city, from the ordinary lakeward is this DNR. So that's who the enforcement agency is for the shoreland. The owner did not obtain that study. Instead, they appealed the floodplain determination of the zoning administrator to the board and requested to leave the sand in place. The Planning Commission overturned the floodplain determination and order of the zoning administrator, waived the imposed fine, allowed the fill to remain on 105 feet of the property, and ordered the southerly 25 feet to be restored with native vegetation with a plan to be submitted by the city. This was granted with the condition that the DNR must also approve this action. And we do look to the DNR for recommendations on our action. So if they're okay with, they agree with what we did, then it's fine. This does not mean anything in the lake is taken care of. That's out of our venue. That's the DNR that has to take care of that if they choose to do that. So right now, it's information only. Action of the Planning Commission was final unless it's appealed to the City Council. It can be appealed to us by the owner. For example, if they didn't want to restore 25 feet or whatever, then it could reverse the Planning Commission. Or if the DNR appeals that Planning Commission's action. So right now, we're kind of in a holding pattern, waiting for that 30 days to happen for an appeal. And then we'll see if nothing is appealed, then it's final. If something is appealed, then it'll come back to you.
So it's a 30-day before, and if nothing is done, then it's just out?
It's just done,
Okay,
with the 25 feet restoration that the Planning Commission ordered.
okay. Does the DNR generally overturn pieces like this, or?
The DNR usually works with us on these situations as far as what can be done and can't be done. And, they're the shoreland experts, so they know more what they're talking about. So we do look to them for advice. And sometimes they chime in and sometimes they don't. I know they're aware of this site because there's 4 in a row. And so, of course, it's on their radar. They're the ones that gave us the pictures in the first place. So what they decide is, we haven't heard back from them yet. So we'll let you know.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? As she said, there was 4 in a row. We got the other 3 coming. So it's just a heads up. With that, we'll move on to our consent agenda. We have a schedule of claims, unpaid claims of $130,099.68, and September checks, paid claims / payroll of $407,553.61. We have a gambling application for exempt permit request from Sauk Center Archery Boosters for a raffle on March 10th, 2025 at the Sauk Center Public School. Is there any questions about the consent calendar? Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
Make a motion to approve?
Motion by Shallen, second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Informational items.
I have a couple informational items here. The CBB did submit their third quarter profit and loss and balance sheet, which I have attached for you. I think the balance sheet probably is not as informational for you as the profit and loss statement would be, which shows their income and expense categories. I don't know if this is everything that you were looking for as a financial report. I think there was some more questions or requests regarding like, how was that used for promotional purposes? Or how is it being used? Because you can break it down like what's advertising, what's payroll, but it doesn't really give you the indication of what types of promotional activities or what things were done to promote Sauk Center. So that's the one thing that I noted on there as I provide you this report. And we can provide feedback back to the CBB to see if there's something different or more that you're looking for in this report. This is the first one that we have received since the meetings this spring with the CBB.
Questions? Concerns?
And you can get back to me too after you have the time to review to see what other information you might want.
I was kind of curious what the Zoom and other expenses were. There's $407 there.
The what and other
The
expenses?
Zoom and the other expenses.
Zoom
Profit
meetings?
and loss.
Meetings like
Yeah,
the phone
yeah,
system or.
profit and loss. $407 total. I was just wondering what it was for.
Well, Zoom would be your cost to have Zoom meetings. You have to pay for that. You know, so what their other expenses is, I don't know. I can certainly ask.
Shallen, any insights being on the board?
I don't know if Joe and Shallen
I don't-
are
I-
expecting more or less. You're the ones that negotiated it
Yep.
with it. To me, it's very generic. Isn't telling us much.
Doesn't tell
Not
us
any more than
anything.
we already knew.
Yep.
So,
And that is why I wanted you to bring the first report to you and get your feedback if there's something more detailed that you want to see, that we can get back to them and request that for the next time around.
council's wishes. Give them feedback.
I just don't know how our request of that fits into their current process, like if there's, if it's not a requirement of their bylaws, like the specifications of what's being asked, is it within our rights to ask that?
The only concern is we're the ones that are the funnel for all the money that's coming in, and we're the ones that are giving them the money.
Yep.
We should at least be able to see what we're getting for the money we're giving them. We're the one collecting the tax. We're doing all the administration.
I think kind of what we were looking for is what kind of promotions, what kind of advertising.
Right.
You just picked out those advertising and promotion sections and trying to break that down a little bit more
Yeah.
of seeing where the funds are being spent. I mean, the other things like payroll and postage is pretty obvious where that money went. And I think when your conversations earlier had to be like, what is the return for this? What are we doing with that
Right.
money?
Yeah, I think we talked about this in our meetings too, was having a little bit more detail on where it was advertised, why it was chosen, that type of stuff is part of those conversations. I mean, again, this is the first report, from what they had. I don't know if the year end would be a lot more detailed in some of those things too. So it's a process of learning together here on some of this a little bit as well. Again, Shallen, I don't know, as far as the meetings, anything you can
I
shed
mean,
more light on this stuff?
Not, I mean, to some extent, I mean, we don't necessarily get into the granular detail of everything on there, but we do see some examples. I mean, yeah, I didn't know exactly what else to have available. I had asked that question as well, and while we were there, didn't know if there was something specific they wanted to bring or whatever, and they said, well, we sent the financial report, and there it is. So I don't know. I think that some of it might even be just utilizing the person in this position who is on their board to bring some of those components, right? Especially when they're available.
Well, it's like, one of the things that I look at is on the profit and loss, printing. Okay, there's no breakdown. It doesn't tell us what they printed, what it was used for. Did they print for sale signs for something, or did they actually promote a business? But then right underneath it, it says promotion. Well, it's 1/10 of what was spent on printing. Well, how can you spend $45 on promotion and spend $5,500 on printing?
Well, it could be,
Without
you know,
telling
it
us
could be a
what you
welcome
did.
ad book and stuff, yeah.
You know, that's the reason why it's generic.
I mean, one of the things we were talking about at our last meeting was, there were some Sauk Center maps that were being updated and talking about some of those components. Just with some updated businesses, there are like these, paper sheets that are available. I don't know, does the city have those, here somewhere? Or I don't remember where she said they put.
Are you
but it
talking
was-
visitors guides?
Nope, not visitors guides. There were like double-sided, essentially maps. I know that
don't know.
both of the hotels had talked about having them available, and it was something that their guests used quite often to highlight businesses in different places like that. So that was one of the components within some of these that we were talking about, just updating some of the businesses on those and.
How about I'll just reach out to her and just ask her a few of these questions and
Yeah.
try to answer
you.
your questions for you, and then we can develop maybe that for the next report to have that kind of detail that you might be interested in.
Yeah, I think it too, like even
And I can invite her to come too to answer those questions.
that year-end report that you were mentioning, Joe, I agree, but we also don't get very specific on that. So like in a quarter, it'd be nice to know what events were held, what brought people in, how many people did it bring in, you know, just the whole point of the CDB.
Okay?
Good.
All right, and then the general election, 2024.
Yep, that's our general election. I keep putting in here every time because, you know, it's coming up on November 5th. Early person voting, in-person early voting starts November 29th, which includes that Saturday, November 2nd, and then, of course, Election Day. We're getting all set up at the front office for that in-person election. We have had a lot of interest. I think that week, we probably won't be doing much here but elections, so. But yeah, I encourage anybody that wants to get it out of the way prior to Election Day, go ahead and come in on October 29th, that full week. We can take care of you then. Some people are very firm that they want to vote on Election Day, and we're happy to have them here that day as well. It's just that we have a very long ballot, 2 sides, and so I know we can process them through a lot faster than they can vote. And so the backup is going to come, and we'll set up probably 20, 25 voting booths, and they'll probably still have a backup for that. So, just informational,
Okay,
and that's it.
any questions more about the informational? Otherwise, that's the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Shallen, second by Diane. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5 in favor, none against. Meeting adjourned.